Hey, it's David Baer, and today we'll be talking about the webinar platform, LiveWebinar. Now, before we dive into LiveWebinar itself, I want to talk briefly about webinar tools in general, because there's a slew of these products coming on the market all the time, particularly after the realization that interactive platforms like Zoom or GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting exist out there and are helping us through these COVID times. So when you're looking at a webinar platform, you need to understand there's kind of two different approaches to webinar tools. One is a heavily marketing-focused webinar tool. Those are the types that are built around getting a lot of people onto a webinar so that a sales presentation can be made, and then they have built-in tools to follow up to get people to come back and watch and take advantage of whatever offer was made on that platform. And then there's this other type of webinar platform, which really focuses on quality presentations, meetings, and internal communications. And that is where LiveWebinar has its strengths. So before we dive into the inside of LiveWebinar, I wanted to briefly show you their website. You can actually go over to livewebinar.com right now and sign up for a free account. Now, there's certain limitations on that account. You are limited to, I think, only 5 people to participate in your webinars, but that's great if you have small meetings that you want to have on a recurring basis with a small group. Of course, the paid plans do allow you much greater opportunity for a larger audience. We'll dive into that in just a moment. But in general, their strengths, as I said, are really focused on high-quality communications, a good quality technology behind their platform, and the ability to communicate with an internal team, really around meetings and training, much more than around selling and marketing. So, here's kind of a range of stuff that they're going to talk about in terms of the features that they offer. And I got to say, going inside of this tool, you may be overwhelmed at first, as I was, with all of the options that you have available to you. It is truly customizable. And that's a good and a bad thing, because if you're looking for simplicity, you kind of have to weed through a little bit of training to make sure that you are getting access to the pieces of the puzzle, the features that you really want for your webinar experience. So, like I said, it's a solid tool. There's integrations into a bunch of different tools out there to help do some of that marketing automation, to get registrants into your CRMs and other tools. But ultimately, as I said, I think that if you're really focused on marketing, this is probably not the best tool out there for your purposes. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why in just a moment. That said, they are a really solid tool in a number of other ways. So let's just jump over to the plans and pricing. At the moment, there is a free tool. Now, we're looking at the annual fee if you pay annually or if you pay monthly. So $15 a month if you're going month to month. You can have up to 100 attendees. You can have sub-accounts. You can pull in videos from YouTube or Vimeo to broadcast on your automated webinars. And then if you're looking for larger audiences, obviously, those are higher prices, and they come with better features in terms of higher quality recordings. You can put banner ads and other pieces into the mix. But you really have to understand, what you're after to figure out what the best tool is for you. Again, if you pay on an annual basis, so you pay once a year as opposed to once a month, those prices drop by 20%. So here we are inside the LiveWebinar platform, and I'm going to walk you through some of the different components of it as I've tested them. Now, there are different types of events or rooms that you could schedule. In this case, there's kind of a scheduled event where you announce on this date and time we're going to be having a meeting or we're going to have a presentation. Here's where you go to sign up. Then you have permanent rooms. Permanent rooms are basically meeting rooms, is how I've interpreted them, how I'm using them. And then there's evergreen events. Now, these are events that you could send traffic to and say, hey, you can go in and watch this presentation at any time. And then finally, a list of any past events that have occurred that you want to get access to again. So that's sort of the lineup here. In addition, I'm going to walk you through sort of the pieces on the left-hand side here. So there's the storage. This is either your video storage, the chat history storage, if you have documents like PDFs that you've uploaded, images that you want to share that you've uploaded. This is where all of that stuff gets retained. And depending again on the level of your account, you have different amounts of storage available to you. The next piece is the surveys or tests, things that you might embed into your presentation. So let's say you want to run a poll. You can, create a name. You then can determine whether it's, you're testing people or if you're asking questions. And then you can choose this as you're running the webinar. You can go and find this asset and then pull it into the presentation that you're doing. Here we have, I think this is not attendees. This is the CTAs or calls to action. So if you want to create a button and say, okay, now go click this button and get access to XYZ, for example, right? So again, you're building, that's what we're looking at over here. Storage, documents or videos, then you're looking at polls and surveys, and then finally calls to action. These are all things that you would pull into your webinar at various times. So these are the assets, I would call it. Now, this stuff has to do with registrants. So I've not run any webinars with registrants other than myself at this point, but this is where you would manage some of that stuff. Actually, this is, I think, the list of presenters. So I'm the only presenter in my my particular account at the moment. This I have not touched, but this is actually, I guess I did touch it when I was working on building out the webinars. This is registration forms, and this is one of the areas that I don't like the platform when it comes to marketing because of the limitations on these registration forms. And I'll show you exactly what I mean in a moment, but really this is not built around trying to sell people on getting into the webinar or to do any sales follow-up in the webinar either. It's just not built for that. And this is one of the places where I think this platform doesn't do as well as a marketing-focused platform. There's then, I think this is the lead forms. So there's two pieces to the puzzle. There is the registration, and then to get people into the webinar when they come to show up, you have the option to give them a form they have to fill out. And so, again, this is where there's a ton of different features in the platform. Some are useful for you, some may not be necessary for you, but you need to understand what all the pieces available to you are, and there's a ton of them, which is great, but you don't need them all. The next piece here is the list of registrants. So this is people who have registered for your events. Again, I've just been testing, so I don't have any registrants at this point. Marketing automation or integrations really is what this is. So even though they say on their sales page that they have marketing automation, if you click on this, you'll actually see that it's just integrations. And so I set up a integration to my Infusionsoft account, but there's all these other tools that are directly integrated through API, or you can use Zapier or Integromat to connect any other tools. And there are thousands of tools out there between those two platforms that you can connect to with LiveWebinar. And then finally, there's just their promotional stuff to connect with them on YouTube and Facebook. So let's dive into one of these webinars. Now, on my account, I have some limitations. I can only have 30 events and only one event that is happening simultaneously. And so I have set up a sample webinar here, which I'll actually just walk you through because it's just as easy as showing you setting up a new one. So here is the webinar that I set up, 5 steps to a successful webinar. I chose a time for it, and then I toggled restrict access to the webinar room. So what happens is this will limit people's ability to get into the room until 60 minutes before the event. I then have a little agenda item here, and so that's piece number 1. Now I've set up a registration form. The registration form requires people to register, obviously. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And the way that this works is just like with these other assets that you would pull into the webinar. Well, these are assets that you can pull into the registration process, for example. So when you get to this point, you have the choice of either pulling an existing form. So I set up a test webinar registration form, or you could actually design a new one. And you just give it a name, and then you can put the description and the various placeholders like, name, email address, if you want to have them check a box or put any other information in. You can collect that information during registration. You can then also connect it to your email platform so that you can do marketing automation externally through that platform. And so I have that set up to go into my Infusionsoft platform. So let's just go back to the test webinar. All right. The lead forms, again, these are different forms, and it can be confusing. In fact, I was confused for a while about what's the difference between the registration form and the lead form. And so this is really when a new attendee is showing up to join the meeting, you can then have them fill out a form before they go into the meeting. The assumption is that they are, it doesn't actually matter if they have been registered in advance or if you want to just have a lead form without the registration form. Those are the two options you have. But in this case, I have, just to show you, the lead form toggled on so that you can see what it looks like. And it's very much the same setup as the registration form. Then you need to choose your presenter. And so I am the only presenter in the system. I've chosen me, but it's as simple as going in and assigning a presenter. Now, if you don't have presenters in the platform, you just go to Manage, and then you can import the information into your various presenters. The idea here is that you've set all that other stuff up ahead of time, so that if if Bob and Joe and Sally are presenting, you just go over and you click. Okay, I want Bob and Joe and Sally's presenter information to show up, so that we know who is going to be involved in this event. And then there's some advanced things that you can do as well. One of the things that I kind of like is that there's various layouts. Also, there's the webinar layout and the meeting layout. I'm going to show you what those look like in just a moment. And then finally, when somebody leaves, you can actually redirect them to whatever page you'd like. And so if you are selling something, you can actually send them over to the sales page. Or if they need to, if you're having a meeting, you're saying, and I want you to go, register for this program that we've just told you all about, you can send them over to sign up for that program, for example. So there's a lot of other things that you have the ability to do. There is a automated email that you can send out afterwards, thank you, but one of the shortcomings that I have found here is that, and I did see that earlier, so I want to just show you. Let's go back to design. You do have the ability to put reminders in advance, and so you can actually put multiple reminders to get onto the webinar. You can set that up. So when you're building this out, it's not assuming automatically that you are going to have these reminders preset. A lot of the marketing-focused platforms actually do that because they are focused on getting people onto the webinars. This is really an option that you can add, but it's not critical to the or it's not required or preset. And so you have to remember to do that if you are setting up a webinar that you need to remind people about. So that's just one other thing that I wanted to share. Oh, I guess I can't do that because I'm in the middle of fixing this. So I'm just going to hit cancel because the last thing I really wanted to show you here is what the registration page looks like. And I guess I need to go in here to edit. We'll hit update. It was probably just details that I needed to go to. But what I'm looking for is the registration link. And so this is the attendee registration link. Let's just open that in a new tab. And I'll show you what it looks like because, again, it's great. It collects the information that you need, but this is where I think it falls short in the marketing capabilities because it's not really built to market or sell you on registering, simply to register. Now, that said, it is possible that you can take this and embed it into a different page, but it's really just not built specifically to do this. So you really just need to understand it has all those marketing capabilities. They are just not cleanly, I don't want to say cleanly integrated. I want to say they're not the preset, and you would need to find ways to approximate those systems that you might find in another platform like Demio or Webinar Ninja or Webinar Jam, for example, which are all really built around marketing-focused webinars. So now we're going to dive into one of the rooms so you can see what it looks like as a presenter. We're just going to go in and join my permanent room. This is sort of my meeting room. All I need to do is hit I'm ready. It's going to let me into the room. And then you can see that there's a couple of different presentation styles. So this is the webinar presentation. I'm going to just change it to the meeting interface, and this is more like talking back and forth. So what you're seeing here is might be like a Google Meet or a Zoom where people are having a meeting exchange. Now I think I want to so you can see I can toggle on and off the chat. I can switch to content. So if I have content that I want to show here, I have the ability to do that as well. I can turn on and off my camera and my mic. Those are options as well. Now, if I want to go back to webinar, let's go back to the webinar interface, and you can see here I have sort of what is showing here. If I want to then open up my screen share, I want to see the chat. I want to have a sense of who else is participating in the meeting. I can see all of that stuff on this little dashboard back here. So in this case, let's say that I want to, for a moment, change the layout. I can do that. And there's like I said, there's a few different scenarios here. I can choose a presentation. If I had one that was already uploaded, I could do that. In this case, let's see if I can actually pull up, I wanted to do screen share. There we go. And so I have the ability then to go and find an application. So let's say I wanted to, right, here's just a folder on my desk that happens to be open. Let's go ahead. Actually, I think I can do an application window, can't I? Or a Chrome tab. Yep, I only have these two things open, but you can see if I wanted to have the setup tab. So you can actually see I'm sharing what we're looking at right now, right? But I have the ability to do a whiteboard, which is built in. I can scribble some stuff here if I want. I have the ability to change this to those calls to action. I could actually pull in a YouTube video right here. So there's all kinds of things that I have the ability to do in this webinar presentation mode. I have the ability to pull in some of that storage stuff. So you remember we talked about being able to pull in a document that I've uploaded. In this case, I don't have anything there, but I have the ability to do that as well. So it's really quite robust when it comes to the types of things that you can include here. I'm quite impressed with it. I think that really what this is more than anything else is a great alternative to Zoom. And looking through the features here, I think you're going to find that, of course, there's a learning curve. There's a learning curve with any platform, but you have a wealth of different things that you can do here, whether it's approximating a solid marketing webinar, but really the ability to do presentations and meetings inside of this tool is very obviously possible. And once you have sort of learned how to navigate the platform, pretty easy to set up and launch a webinar or a meeting. Now, one last thing about LiveWebinar. Unlike Zoom or GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar or WebEx or any of those other tools that require that you download software to host natively on your computer, this is built around a technology called WebRTC. And the benefit of WebRTC is that it works inside of your browser. It's particularly good in the Chrome browser. Firefox works as well. Some of the other browsers like Safari, it's not necessarily going to be as reliable reliable with. Apple has certain limitations to allowing these types of tools to work well within their browser. But aside from that, I really appreciate the ability to just hop onto a web browser and use this tool without having to download additional software. So that's a quick summary of LiveWebinar. You can check it out at livewebinar.com. Once again, I'm David Baer from Baer on Marketing, and thanks for spending some time with me here. Oh, hey, before you go, if you liked the video, hit the like button. And if you got a comment, please leave one. And finally, don't forget to subscribe.